Hello everyone, welcome back again. My name is Cureton, Senior Journalist from XR today. As always, bringing you the latest and greatest from the VR, AR and XR industries. Today we're hosting the Big News Show with some of our best guests around. We've got so many people that we're going to have an amazing conversation with. So we're going to go ahead and let everyone introduce themselves. We're going to start with you, Jay, and we'll work our way down. So how about it?
So hello, Jay Latta again, every time. A tech think tank. I'm with the whole XR area.
All right, Kevin.
Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, folks. Kevin O'Donovan. I spend my time helping companies understand the implications of new technologies, and the art of the possible, all the way down to what's reality for them. But certainly with what we're doing at XR, industrial metaverse, fascinating times.
Excellent. Cam, you next.
Hey, I'm Cam Stevens from Australia. I help organisations to improve the design of work using technology in a responsible way.
Brilliant. Rory.
A fellow technology journalist at XR Today, and it's just always nice to open up the discussion a little bit more about XR and its proper usage, really, and to keep that learning experience going.
Right. And last but not least, Amy.
Yes, I have a company called EndeavorXR, and we do a lot of front-end strategy using emerging technology with a focus on XR, of course, for some of the largest companies in the world, and really help them understand how to deploy. I like the word responsibly, Cam, so I might steal that from you.
Excellent. Whole crew's here, so we're going to go ahead and kick things off. Once again, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the updates from SIGGRAPH. We're going to also sneak some new news in there, the newest of news, and we'll keep the conversation going. So we'll start off with the first question for today. So we discuss NVIDIA, who announced their new Cloud XR updates. This is related to the Omniverse, and they did this at the SIGGRAPH 2023. Jensen Huang gave a very good speech about that, and there's a lot that's been circulating around in the news regarding the industrial metaverse. So for you guys, what are your thoughts on NVIDIA's keynote speech, and what does it reveal about efforts to build infrastructure for the industrial metaverse? Since this is your forte, Kevin, I'm going to kick it off with you.
Overall, good news. I suppose when we look at the infrastructure that's required, one size doesn't fit all. And what I mean by that is that it's not all going to happen on the headset. It's not all going to happen at the edge device on the factory floor. It's not all going to happen in the cloud. So depending on the use case, depending on the security posture, depending on lots of things, available bandwidth, technology, you name it, there are different options. And certainly today, if you look at some of, let's say, what NVIDIA's vision for Omniverse and real-time photo, realistic simulation of production lines, factory floors, whatever, it's going to be hard to run a lot of that stuff on a headset, right? That you just don't have the horsepower. So you're going to have to run it somewhere, either on the edge or in the cloud. And the cloud will be a viable option for certain people based, again, on location, security, industry. So I think it's good news. It's another tool in the toolbox that people can use.
Absolutely. Who else wants to jump on that? Amy? Go ahead, Jay.
The news, how Kevin said, are really exciting. The keynote was amazing. What I personally want to sketch out is really this Cloud XR approach of layers. This is something very important because this enables us not to make environments for AR, MR, VR and so on, but with this one single approach where you have the assets in front that you could combine, in theory, across these different devices, and then just if you are in VR, then you take the last layer, the background as well with you, which might solve some things, might accelerate some things. So definitely from my perspective, it's the right approach.
Yeah, I think we're going to get to the point where we start to, we're dynamically weighting the rendering that needs to happen. So people are seeing only what they need to see, at the right time. In my mind, NVIDIA can do no wrong. Certainly their stock price would indicate that as well, that capital markets believe the same thing. I think last year that, he went on stage and announced this, kind of dynamic simulation, and I'm surprised that more people weren't talking about it then. I think it's remarkable how they've expanded the technology. I think probably my favorite statement, which speaks a little bit to Kevin's point, is, the more you buy, the more you save.
Excellent. Yeah. Anyone else want to jump in on that? Maybe we've got Rory, Cam.
Yeah, I can jump on. Just following from what you were saying there, Amy, about the stock price is really reflecting on the success perhaps that they're having with Omniverse. But I think also within that, some of the integrated technologies there, so the cloud, the AI, OpenUSD, and how all of this technology stack is coming together to create not just a platform for developers to use, but NVIDIA are also giving out the resources and the knowledge to create a developer talent pool around Omniverse. Because I imagine it won't be maybe a year or two until we have the developers who know how to use that platform correctly and then really do those system selling or SDK selling applications. But that future is probably definitely there. Again, just based off their success as well as their current stock price. So it all looks pretty good there in terms for NVIDIA.
Rory, you said something very important, which reflects the overall support. Of course, NVIDIA is not just making this one thing. We know how they started. So their technology, the hardware, and right now as well the software pieces are combining a very interesting hardware, software intelligence towards these smart environments. So where you can, with your digital twin as well, bring it into this immersive or spatial web, whatever, and they deliver you as well the whole hardware. I mean, AI accelerators, the GPUs for rendering and so on. I would not be surprised if they start as well to develop their own headsets, simply to get a smooth package of everything. The issue here is many players are a little bit scared, especially in the industrial area, are scared of a vendor lock-in. So of course they try somehow to spread their invest into multiple, even if it's not the best solution. So here NVIDIA would need to showcase as well that you are still independent while you are getting edge devices, AI devices, and so on from them. Concerning the support, this was from my own industrial time very, very interesting when they started to announce and to sell sneak previews to their Omniverse, how active they've been supporting and even helping the people to develop algorithms. So they are quite proactive. They are willing to help, and they understand what kind of power they can bring. So this reflects as well the stock.
I'd say I think their Hugging Face sort of integration or collaboration was pretty powerful. But I also think that it was a real demonstration of convergence of all these different technologies, particularly their nod to AI and leveraging the ability to just conversationalize generation of content. So I thought that was quite impressive. Having tried to put together the tech stack for Omniverse, I think to what Kevin said, it's actually not that simple. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. So being actually able to see this come to fruition is a little bit difficult. And there's a lot of terminology in there that just doesn't resonate with enterprise. So there's some challenges there, I think, with trying to drive the narrative around language. There's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of sort of proprietary terminology that, in my mind, disenfranchises the ability to get an organization to resonate in some sense. But I think they do a really good job. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Well, if I may, I'll take Jay's role and play devil's advocate for a second. So I came from Intel, right? And NVIDIA deserve a huge amount of credit for all of the interoperability they're driving with OpenUSD and. But like at the end of the day, you're going to have a piece of hardware to run stuff on. So you need a CPU, GPU, NPU, DPU, all the terminology. And like you have ARM, not kind of at races with data center. You have AMD, you have NVIDIA, and you have Intel. So I think that to Jay's thing, you don't want a one vendor lock-in. So then you want a data center that's full of AMD, Intel, and NVIDIA chips that all provide the same level of, what would you say, quality in terms of I want my industrial metaverse. So to Cam's point, I find this stuff fascinating, and people are plugging all this together. But yeah, it's not trivial. And the system is only as good as the weakest point. And then sometimes the weakest point I'm seeing right now is the data quality. You can have all the cool hardware, but if the data quality is poor, guess what? You know.
Well, Kevin, the weakest point in this is always the management. The data quality is the second weakest point, because mostly the management has absolutely no clue what they want to do with it.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in. I actually spoke to a company recently. They're called Interactive, and they're actually using the NVIDIA Omniverse to create solutions that they want for their clients. And it was interesting how they talked about how they were able to scale up along with the company and, introduce new kinds of services as the Omniverse grew itself. So it's really interesting to see how that's going to scale up, over the next 6 months to a year, 5 years down the road, to see what kind of things it will do, and also support all of the end users of the product to see how they're going to actually, be able to work with the SDKs, work with any of the, the platforms, the newest technologies, and so on. So I think it's going to create continuity, like you guys were saying, across the board to at least give people that, that 4F, the L4S, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's like the lossless, very kind of like near zero latency that's needed for the industrial metaverse, because it's going to be extremely technical running all of those data points across the system and making sure that people can monitor them in real time. So I hope that they support their end users that way.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of these service providers popping up, both on kind of building the sort of front end and the interactions and how the data is parsed and visualized, and then on the back end, the SIs are just going to add yet another very expensive line item for companies to help them integrate into their legacy systems.
But Devin, just a quick one, if I may. We're going on a real rat hole here, but like we talk about like real time, and real time means different things to different people. And you might have heard of leap seconds, and it's an issue in the Industrial Metaverse Standards Forum right now. Unix machines versus Windows machines use a different leap second standard or setting. So if you're trying to put all the data together in millisecond precision, you need to deal with leap second OS issues. So there, to Cam's point, there's we've made huge advances, and the stuff is accelerating at a huge pace, but we're not done yet, right? There's a few features under the covers here in some of this stuff.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah, excellent commentary, everyone. Really appreciate your input and feedback on that. So we're going to jump to the next question here. We're going to talk a little bit about Magic Leap 2. So I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation here. So how the Magic Leap 2 is powering the new Mercedes Vision 111. So what I wanted to ask all of you is basically, what is your take on the automotive XR industry? I've been seeing quite a few new solutions, proof of concepts, things of that nature, going for that. And do you think that transport will become the perfect vehicle for spatial communications? So have you seen anything in the news days?
Well, I'm going to let Jay start because he's exhaling loudly and he's, from the automotive industry. but we have automotive clients too, so I'll share the nicer perspective as soon as he's done.
So honestly, it's just another showcase of something that is not interesting. It's just a toy. I mean, it's like taking Barbie for serious. I've seen in the past, for example, in their Vision Avatar, how they've implemented the BCI. This is something so crappy, something so that it simply, you leave the vehicle completely disgusted and hope that it will never come into mass production. With Magic Leap, what I've been surprised a bit is Magic Leap is in Europe not really a significant player. Some people know it, but mostly the industry deal here with the HoloLens. So here that they already were able to anchor themselves within Mercedes group is interesting. We'll see if they can proceed on this. But everything that brings XR into whatever vehicle, if it's from virtual reality, HoloRide, and so on, this kind of toy nonsense, if it's doing some AR stuff in pretending to be a head-up display, if it's right now what Magic Leap has done, it's a nice showcase, but we should simply stay, it's just a toy, nothing else.
Well, I see where you're going with that. Of course, you know that I'm a big fan of Magic Leap 2. I think it's an incredibly powerful device. I think it's the direction we need to be going in. If I were given the option of pass through versus true world mixed reality, obviously I'd choose mixed reality all day long. And this is a concept, right? It's like one of the concept cars that all the manufacturers put out there, sort of a futuristic vision of what you would do. But I think that I think in general, mixed reality, HoloLens 2, even before Magic Leap 2 came out, I think the challenge is that they're just sort of struggling to find a foothold in the industry because of some of the shortcomings of the wearability of the device. Magic Leap has a compute pack, that's tethered. So there are just some physical challenges, but they are the closest to being on that path to true mixed reality. So I applaud all of their efforts. I think this is really just a way to market the device, and to your point, help elevate their, and educate the market throughout Europe, throughout the rest of the world. They have a fairly good profile in the industry here in North America. So I think they're really trying to just open this up to a more global audience. And while I don't see us driving around having these devices on, in automotive, there are any number of great use cases, not the least of which is on the collaborative design component. There's see what I see on the manufacturing line. So there's a lot of the use cases that we've known about for for a decade, especially with mixed reality, that have incredible ROI, but the devices themselves are really more of the challenge on the integration side, on the wearability, and with a little bit of occlusion on the periphery, with just the way the devices have to be built to carry all the compute. But that said, the net is somebody's got to be working on true mixed reality, because I think pass-through is really the thing that we're doing until we get there. And Magic Leap is out there in front leading the charge right now, since Microsoft is, purportedly really kind of backed away.
You are completely right, Amy. And I agree. Magic Leap is currently, from these mixed reality devices, one of my favorite as well. Yes, definitely. So for Magic Leap itself, this is a huge achievement. It is something very important. From the automotive side, from Mercedes, I don't take it for serious, because they hop onto several things just to have something different than anyone else. I will be next week at the ERA Mobility, but BMW will introduce their head-up display across the whole windshield. I'm curious how they've done it, because what I know from my pastime, it's not that easy. The thing is just, in automotive, there is a desperate race to showcase something, but not to bring it into reality. It's like this overall industry is in some kind of midlife crisis. It's like this old mid 40, 50-year, my age guy driving a red Ferrari, wearing skinny jeans and whatever. It's simply, there is no real concept behind. It's I remember when Tesla brought their central display, everyone was bullshitting around like, oh, how can you put an iPad into the vehicle? And right now, everyone copies it. So it's really this lack of understanding, lack of imagination, what we can do with this beautiful technology, really. And it's not just what they are showcasing.
Okay, yeah. The likelihood of XR maturing, I think that the pace of XR maturing and the pace of autonomous vehicles maturing is probably on a similar path. So I think in terms of what data do we need if we're not going to be driving the vehicle, is it's probably more XR for transport in general. When we're commuting from A to B, air, plane, train, that there's a period in time where we have a need to be consuming digital content, or interacting with digital content in that commute setting. I don't think the need for directions and all that kind of stuff is actually that necessary at that convergence period. But I think in between now and then, it's nice. It's kind of like, what data do I need to be able to make my journey better? And I think more of the use cases are going to be for the passenger than they are for the driver. I don't think human road safety, the ethics and the challenges around road safety won't allow us to be wearing a head-mounted display in a vehicle. I just don't see it happening. If we can't use a mobile phone, we're not going to stick something on our head. And particularly if the way we have to control the device is not with our voice, you're taking the hands off the wheel. So the whole thing just doesn't make a lot of sense to me in the driving seat. But I think in transport in general, it's a perfect opportunity to be leveraging XR for a variety of different purposes, including entertainment, but also for work.
I think you bring a good point that autonomous vehicles and true mixed reality are sort of on a similar time trajectory. I look at it as, the windshield and the glass of the actual vehicle will be how you look at the environment. It will be just an extension of the infotainment system. A device like Magic Leap or some other wearable will be what we're doing on a more personal level, right? So it's sort of global environment versus what we're focused on.
After we've started now talking about autonomous vehicles, if they ever will come, and I don't think they will come in the next time because so many things are completely fucked up. You have in the interior of a vehicle the issue that you cannot wear a bulky device because in case of a crash, you will have completely different problems. So here, especially when it comes into level 5 autonomous driving, here we are talking about concepts like windowless cars, because our human brain has some issues to not to be in control while the vehicle is with high speed driving somewhere. It's not like being in a bus or in a railway, whatever. But here simply to build for level 5 where you don't have a steering possibility anymore, controlling possibility. Windowless vehicle where you have these virtual windows to pretend you to do something different. Yes, exactly. When it comes into level 3, level 4, any kind of device that you wear. I mean, try to read a book while someone drives. You will, I don't think your stomach is so robust. It simply does not work. As soon what you see does not match what you feel, you are getting into real trouble. So all of these use cases that some uninspiring automotive managers are talking about, like you can work while the thing is driving you can watch a movie and so on. All of this is simply nonsense. All of these XR experiences will be somewhere else heading towards. Not consumption of media and not working. Definitely not.
You forget by that time, Jay, that we will already have the motion sickness mitigation chip plugged in before we get into our autonomous vehicle. So you're missing the point entirely.
Yeah, exactly. You are right. If we have this chip, then I can plug directly into the computer. Mm-hmm.
I've already pre-ordered mine.
Right. Magic Leap have good technology. And they're to be commended for taking it into a new use case, for want of a better word. Now, I totally agree in terms, Cam made a great point and whatever. The safety, in France right now, if, you will be locked up if you're driving on the street talking on your phone or looking at your phone. And rightly so, right? People are dying. So the concept of having, even if it's no glasses and it's a big head-up display on the thing, distraction and whatever. So but this is a concept vehicle, and it is the art of the possible. And people will start thinking, I think about this, that, and the other, and whatever. And now, we will never work in the car. God, I don't know how many times I've been in a taxi or in the back of a car or in the front seat of a car with a laptop open. But seriously, so we are working in cars today. But look, I think they should be commended in that, A, they're finding a new way of using the technology, making more people aware of what it is. Whether or not it will be practicable, and the next time I buy a Mercedes or someone, whatever, it'll be built in. Yeah, let's see, right? But it's about pushing the boundaries right now, and who knows? Amy, to your point, maybe we will be all plugged into the car in 10 years' time. You won't need a headset; it'll be broadcasting your brain or something. But I think that it's a good idea.
It's art of the possible, right? It's starting to, we keep forgetting about consumers in the enterprise conversation, but consumers are the workforce. And at the moment, consumers don't have a day-to-day utility for these devices. And we saw that hard line in the sand when ChatGPT was released. Like, these devices have been out there, and yet, even my son, who's a front row seat to everything that's going on, his Quest 2, it's only when I, challenge him to ping pong when I'm somewhere remote and, we decide to get competitive, does he put it on, right? And so it hasn't resonated with consumers. And so this is a way to just get consumers to start thinking about it, so we can start to come up with, okay, well, then maybe that's not the way we'd use it, but how would we use it? So it's these very slow incremental steps. We all wish it was moving more quickly. But really what we need to get to is this type of a wearable.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in quickly. I was going to say, with this kind of like mobile computing used for vehicles, especially, I've been banging on to Roy a lot about trying to get someone on like Cross Helmet or BMW, because if you're riding like a motorcycle, for example, like for me, you have to be hyper vigilant at all times, and I'm wondering how that kind of like real time data would work in those particular situations, because they kind of use similar technology. It's just like a heads-up display in an F-16 Hornet or something like a F-35 Lightning. So if it works for them, I'm wondering how they're applying that to the general public. Could they use this to make themselves safer drivers? Focus more on the data around them. But it's also, we have to consider the normal driving habits of the everyday user. A lot of people are speeding down the road. A lot of people don't pay attention, and it's just their natural way of processing things. So I would say the user is almost as important as the technology itself. How would they actually use that to their advantage? But I was going to say, Roy, in your situation, would you see yourself using something like this?
I think I wouldn't see myself using something like this per se, because I think the idea of it being a mobile, or at least while I'm driving, it's the idea of it being a mobile device or using a smartphone while you're driving. I think that's a very sort of key similarity, especially when you talk to a number of hardware vendors and they discuss the idea of bringing computing technology from your hands to your eyes. So it is the natural transition of a smartphone. So we should probably think about it and respectfully think about it in that way. Equally, we just probably don't know what that even looks like, putting someone in a car on a real road wearing a VR headset. We've only just got enough idea about how automation works. We don't have anywhere near the same amount of data for using a headset in real life environments. However, I think, going back to Amy's point, it's just a really good marketing gimmick right now. What that was put out with Magic Leap. Because yes, the consumer is as important as the enterprise, and being able to show how VR, XR, AR, MR headset vendors, how they can collaborate with the automotive industry, can perhaps bring light into more serious and robust current use cases like VR vehicle training, or perhaps going to commuting again, perhaps smart city planning and how automotive and XR match up there, as well as new innovations such as using XR in boats and using XR in perhaps aircraft and such like this for more maintenance and repairs. I think it really opens up that conversation, and it's a really good marketing point to lead people to that discovery of how XR is not just being innovated, but then also used today alongside automotive partners.
Excellent points on that. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of different use cases, especially, linked to, how people can actually, they can use it for like mapping streets. You have the Google Maps, people could actually use that to, do real-time mapping of that. Different ways to train people. If you're a new learner and you're trying to learn how to ride a car, you can actually have the heads-up display give you the instructions there. while you're doing it. So you can practice maneuvering and stuff like that. So there's a lot of possibilities. I think what we're trying to do right now is to see, can we get this to work? Because I remember Vario worked with BMW for the M2 Coupe, and they tried, to get a real-time working model of a person using a headset, riding with virtual content in a real mapped situation, like a course. And they found that it was actually quite good, but the computing, had to sit in the back of the vehicle. They had this huge headset on. Currently, the hardware is not going to match up with what people can use in the future, but at least it shows that we can do it.
I guess as soon, let's say Apple brings out a real AR device, this will be a benchmark when people start using their devices in vehicles. When then comes the request, hey, how can I connect it to my Mercedes, BMW, Audi, or whatever? Simply to get rid of the usual, do not order a head-up display, just give me an API so that I can display it directly in my glasses. So this kind of use cases will come from the users as soon these high quality, hopefully high quality glasses will be available. From the automotive side, I'm not really expecting any kind of innovation in this area. The focus is simply completely different. They want to sell you services. They are not really interested into making your life easier.
Yeah, good points. I mean, it's going to be interesting how they kind of like flesh this out, because I think that one of the companies they were making like an in-car entertainment system, and that's going to be quite interesting. Like Holoride, I think was the company's name, and they've got quite an interesting kind of device agnostic or car agnostic system that you can plug directly into anyone's car for in-car entertainment, and it actually alleviates a lot of the stress of kind of car sickness and things of that nature. So I guess experimentation is going to be the key on that. But I wanted to jump quickly to the last one because we have about 5-10 minutes left. We're going to talk a little bit about Samsung creeping into the industry. We've had Apple, we've had Meta, we've had HTC Vive, a lot of different players coming into the XR industry. And now Samsung is finally making headways into there. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? I guess quickly we can get like 1-2 minutes responses from each of you. We're going to start with Rory, because you've been following a lot of those developments.
For sure, it's cool to see another vendor enter into the XR device marketplace and perhaps have it reflect the laptop and personal computing market, and to have something that's rife with competition. However, I think more recently, following the leaks, the more major leaks of the device specification itself, there's been further comments by insiders saying how the Samsung and Google partnership is facing roadblocks and is facing hurdles, and production is slowing due to the two firms butting heads. And there is also suggestions that the partnership itself perhaps is facing hurdles due to them rushing a device to create competition. I think there's already a lot of really good vendors out there, XR headset vendors, whether it be Varho, Magic Leap as mentioned, that wide spectrum. I think now perhaps some of the bigger smartphone and laptop providers are jumping into that race, maybe without a clear vision of what they want, especially Samsung here, who sound like they've had issues creating the device, and I think they've had the issues over design specifications. And that all comes probably from rushing a device. They don't know what they properly want. And then going to other firms like Microsoft, who are jumping back into the device and immersive device and software space with their 2024 industrial roadmap. They've set a clear line of, we are not putting out any strong hardware promises until this early 2024 date. They're doing little hints here and there what they're working on, but they seem to be taking that roadmap seriously and having a good vision in sight. I'm not too sure from more recent comments if the Samsung Google headset that was leaked will get that same kind of respect and consideration, and it might get lost in this kind of quite competitive landscape we're seeing going into 2024, especially considering how much more quiet it seemed at the start of the year. It's going to look very different. It's good there's so many competitors coming in, but I think all these firms need a clear vision, because I think it's very close to getting a bit muddled.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's generally positive that they're coming in. I agree, Rory. It seems like it's a little bit rushed. There was a point at which Samsung was going to be working with Microsoft on a consumer HoloLens 3. So there's just been a lot of kind of back and forth. I think Google's been very, very quiet, although they have a number of the engineers from the HoloLens team. And, of course, they had the acquisition of Focals by North, which was a much more kind of lightweight. They sort of approached it from the opposite standpoint that most of the hardware, the OEMs have been, which is, instead of, building these devices with, fully featured and then getting them as small as possible, Focals by North started with a wearability factor. And then the focus for them was, all right, well, what can we put into this device, in this form factor? So where we need to get to is kind of a convergence of the two. It looks like Samsung and Google are going to be headed again towards that more fully featured, rich device. But my hope is that they start to think about wearability. We call these devices wearables, but the reality is that they're just not for any significant period of time.
Well, if you look at now, whatever, for transparency, I'm a Samsung Galaxy user, right? I've for years, so I'm a big fan of their phones. So if you've got their presence in the phone market and people are going, well, to Rory's point, we're going to be transitioning it to kind of a whatever headset or a heads-up display. You want a piece of that market. You don't want to become the next Nokia, right? So they've got to be investing in stuff. And again, yeah, it's another player in the market. How successful it'll be, whatever, but another player is another player, so that's good news. And let's see how it plays out. And to Rory's point, with there's a lot of co-opetition going on right now, right? So like even Samsung and Google with the Pixel, God, there must be good conversations about that at times, right? What do you call it? And Samsung have their own operating system, but we don't see that in too many phones. So look, there's a big land grab going on. Nobody wants to be left behind, but the more people are trying, the more innovation, and they may not be perfect, but they'll probably have something that people will go, that's not bad. Now they also mentioned that they want to do a lot around the optics. So, because they're a huge components provider. So maybe it's not a Samsung headset I buy, it's somebody else's, but it's got Samsung stuff inside, right? And their chipsets and stuff, right? So see how it plays out, but it's interesting times. It's better to see more people bringing out new devices than people pulling out, right?
Yeah, because the level of investment, it has to be big tech. I mean, you've seen how much Magically has raised over the years. I mean, it is incredibly expensive to bring this level of hardware to not just build it, but then take it to market. I mean, it's just there's very few companies in the world, and it's we have to rely on big tech to make the investment. So I think overall, it's not about whether or not they carve out market share. It's that they're trying to carve out market share, and they're going to push R&D, which is good for all of us.
This is an ecosystem device to me. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think for XR to be successful, you need audio, you need to be able to offload the compute, and you need to have something to wear on your wrist in a certain sense. So having the watch, having the buds, and having the compute power in a phone in the Galaxy ecosystem with Samsung, having then the headset to me makes sense. It's kind of like why Apple, I think, will be quite successful with their ecosystem play. I have from what I saw of the specs, if the specs are true, like it's effectively the Lenovo VRX, like it almost exactly, but it's got a Samsung chipset. And given Qualcomm's chipsets are and they've got such a phenomenal strategy around how they're looking to be able to offload compute to the chipset, like processing to the chipsets in these minor form factors, particularly for glasses, as well as more robust headsets. I wonder how Samsung's chipset will perform. I'm not a chipset dude, but it sounds like it's like on specs, it seems pretty good, but how can they keep that up? So given you can leverage off Qualcomm for everything else, that may be a challenge for them. But yeah, I think it's an ecosystem play. I think it makes a lot of sense. And for those that aren't into the Apple ecosystem and you want an Android device that's got all the other fruit that runs with it, makes sense to me.
And if you tie it back to what we started out with Cloud XR, yeah, my chip is faster than your chip and got more horsepower for doing that graphics capability in the headset. Well, supposing you're doing it in the cloud and you have 5G, maybe you don't need the heaviest processing chipset. You just need graphics. So I look, there's so many moving pieces here, but I think it's good. We'll see how it plays.
Everyone in this group has absolutely valid points. Yes, definitely, yes. The thing is just, Samsung delivered an answer without the right question. I don't know what to think about. If it's just part of the ecosystem, we have our watches, we have our earbuds, we have the phones and so on, and now you will get as well a device for your eyes. I see the same danger like with everything else, that if you don't get the proper updates, it will die after 2 years. Huge thing. Interoperability is super important. So if I use my Apple iPhone, I want to use as well some different pair of glasses. If they don't talk, and I had really serious issues to connect a different smartwatch outside of the Apple ecosystem with my iPhone, it simply sucks. So if you it depends what is their strategy. And currently, I have no idea what their strategy really is. What kind of answer they are delivering to what kind of question. Because if they want to be a reliable, valuable enrichment of the overall ecosystem, means no cloud, lock in whatever, that I can use it with every device, that I do not need, even if they shut down a service, I can still continue using it. Otherwise, it will be just an expensive break, right? So this is still not clear. And this differentiation against HoloLens, against Magic Leap, against Oculus, against whatever, I don't see it. So here, maybe we need to wait a little bit more until they come with something, and hopefully they don't fuck it up.
Now, in Samsung's defense, right, we're all talking here about leaked documents. So actually, Samsung haven't announced anything. They have announced in their earnings call that, we're thinking about doing this kind of stuff, and it's fairly high level. Exact same as Apple did until they announced the Vision Pro. And just when they did the announcement and we saw all the stuff, then was, okay, that's what they're up to. So who knows what Samsung are up to? Because what we're going on is a Chinese news publication leaked the specs. So
completely agree with you, Kevin. The thing is just, if any Samsung higher management listens to this beautiful round, don't mess it up. Please don't mess it up.
I wanted to really kind of show that a lot of these companies are now having to think a bit more abstractly than they did in the past. Everyone got by on making smartphones. Now that the market is saturated, actually smartphone sales are down across the board. So people are trying to find new ways to get into new kind of computing markets, whether that's creating kind of cloud services, whether or not that's introducing new kinds of technologies, wearables, and so on. With the headset, I think even with Apple, as polished as the presentation was, there was still a lot of questions about it. Who's going to pay $3,500 for it? Who's going to use it in what use cases? And, a lot of people will do it. Some will do it for the novelty. Some will actually use it within their productivity workflows. So it just really depends on, for the first generation, how these things will sell and how people will use them, because everyone's going to have a diverse, different kinds of ways to use these products. And, many of us here have a Meta Quest 2. What was the last thing we did on it? We played video games, probably. Some of us used it to create something. Some of us used it to, outline something with computer-aided design, or to do a training module or something. So I hope that in addition to Samsung creating this, that people also say, okay, yeah, I want to use this in my particular workflow. I'm going to use this for an enterprise case. I'm going to use this for a personal case. So we'll see how that plays out. But Yeah, it was great leaks. Anyways, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thanks so much for joining. All the best to Kevin O'Donovan, Cam Stevens, Rory Greener, Amy Peck, and Jay Latta. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And if you like conversations like this, for the audience, please join us at the XR News hashtag on Twitter and LinkedIn. Once again, my name is Cureton, Senior Journalist for XR Today. We've been hosting Big News Show for today. Thanks so much to my guests who have always been stalwart supporters of this show. And until next time, thanks again. Bye now.